what I know about this house is that this house or this block of houses belonged to Ramon Alari. And Ramon Alari dies in 1841, but his widow, Manuela Jaramillo, outlives him until 1867. Now, you said you had a lot of dates about 1875. What happened was that the Quintana family acquired this, and Fernando Quintana moved his daughter, Dolores Quintana, who had married an Arellanes, into this complex. And all of these rooms, 5, 8, how many there were, then were Arellanes rooms.
Okay.
And it was Henry Arellanes, the grandson of the guy that married Dolores Quintana, who was telling me about this and telling me about some kind of a platform here where this old woman, the wealthiest woman of the village, was watching her peones. So if there was a transition about 1867 to 75, it was probably that rooms were added to accommodate this newly married couple, and the surname was Arellanes.
Okay.
And then they live here for decades.
Well, that makes sense, but the whole thing, as far as I can tell, roof beam-wise, is all late. I would expect some roof beams, unless
Yeah.
the thing had fallen. There would be no reason to replace roofs unless things had gone to hell. And the time interval is so short, I don't believe that, because somebody seems to have been sitting around 40 or 50
Okay, but
years
now,
and
Tom,
falling
if
in.
you could get dates of the houses that are around the plaza that the church is in the middle of, all of these were described as 100 years old
Right.
when Leonard interviewed the villagers.
Well, that's why I'd like to have that one next door to Joe Quintana's, because that's one of them. That's the one I got the one pinon out of.
Well,
Right.
and the one that Rick Quintana now lives in was one of them.
Yeah, but it's not. I've already looked at that. There's nothing in there that I can get unless we
Yeah,
rip
it's
up the
amazing.
floorboards or
Yeah.
something.
And
So the other
Margie
possibility-
Quintana and the one next to Margie, which is the Sandoval house, the one that's...
On the south side here,
Yes?
I haven't dealt with them, so I don't really know.
Well, that would make sense that quadrangle, those houses that form a square, that were
Right.
the original placita, that was the little fortified village, would be the oldest houses in the village.
Right.
And the dates should be similar all the way around there and should correlate with basically this block of houses right here, I would
Right.
think.
Right. Now I don't like the way they're staggered. I mean, the layout looks suspicious. You got 1, 1, 1, 1 for your oldest houses.
Yeah.
And if you had a block that was fortified, that is enclosed around the plaza, the odds of having 1, 1, 1, 1 like that is pretty remote. You'd have sections at least
Yeah.
that might have lasted, but not equally distanced all the way around. I'm not saying they weren't there, but what I'm saying is what happened to the stuff in between. It seems odd that it's not that long ago that the in-betweens disappeared, all of them. And I go, that doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah.
And I've got a paper written on this thing, this fortified this, and this guy kindly looked at the paper for me and gave me some straight edges, of course, which is good. That's how the business works. I had to go back and look at some other things. Actually, it was the editor that turned me on to some of these other people. He really knows his stuff. And so I found out a lot more about Hispanic villages in New Mexico in the critical years of 1700s and 1800s. And the government in Santa Fe was going bananas. Why can't those damn settlers protect themselves? I mean, there's a number of official accounts from officials going out there lamenting that these damn people out there, And the one up at Abiquiu was very interesting to me because it gave me some insights I'd never even dreamed about why they didn't want to protect themselves. And I'll tell you, here's why. And they also had signed a thing, and they were supposed to do. All these people signed, well, when they give us a land grant, you were forced to have so many people armed with these kind of weapons, and you got to fortify it around there so that people don't get you and this kind of crap. And it, most of the time it didn't happen. In the 1700s, they were rolling people left and right. But over at Abiquiu, here was their thinking. One, if you fortify the plaza at Abiquiu, it becomes a center of attention for the for the raiders. You've got all your stuff centralized right there, so the target's bigger. They said, we're a bigger target. And two, the guys are all out in the fields. When Joe Comanche comes ripping in, where do you think the defense is? Not in the plaza. They're all out there in the fields, and they come ripping through the gates and everything because they don't know. You can't keep gates locked all the time. And they grab the women and chase the horses, grab everything and take off. The time those guys get in from the fields, it's too late. So you go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Okay. 3, social obligations. When you pack everybody in next to one another, they have obligations to one another about how things go. Stay away from this. And 4, which I think is really important, is I go, if we pack us all in the plaza community, that means the officials can keep an eye on us. And most of these damn people, for a while in there, the governor passed laws saying you couldn't trade with the Comanches and the rest of them. They tried to stomp out the trade. And all these mothers were heavily engaged. They were the middlemen for the Rio Grande Valley. All these peripheries, they were heavy into it. And so, in their way of thinking, and we know how this goes, we're in the plaza, they can watch us. They can tax us, they can see what's going on. They can stop the trade, blah, 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 blah. And so, they didn't want that to happen. So you go, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense how those governments are, right? And the 5th thing was, or whatever, if you have all your stock and everything out scattered out there and not concentrated, when they came raiding in, maybe somebody will lose something. But it takes time to gather up all the stuff. If you got your cows all over the place, they can't grab them and run. They got to go out there and chase them down and all. It takes time, and not into the time game. And also, it gives a chance for these guys to maybe negotiate with people when they see them, because they know these guys. It isn't like they're strangers. Because most of these things are mestizo villages, or they're mixed bloods. Especially guys along in here. A lot of Comanche blood in here. I mean, there are brothers out there, kind of thing. This whole interaction has been fascinating about what's going on. It's driving the government in Santa Fe crazy because everybody's out here operating illegally. But they're also benefiting the government because the government got together with Comanche and said, we're going to... And they did. They have the only piece out here where meanwhile, the Comanches are just doing everybody else. And sometimes, and I found this out, reading the Comanche book, this is a little interesting twist for me. I mean, I'm not from New Mexico, but I know the hostility that goes here, and I've seen it, operate from Texas the last 20 years or so. And Texas has accused us of any number of things, and just go right off the bat. Texas is pointing their finger at New Mexico. We want our legislators back. I mean, the hell, that's pretty galling. And we're going to send the Texas Rangers over to get them. Oh yeah? Well, our governor said, you send them over here, we'll throw them in jail. I went, oh, right. This is like 10 years ago, 7 years ago. I mean, this is really. But the other side of the coin, which fascinates me, is this. One thing is, the Comanches, especially 1840s, 1850s, whatever, New Mexico was hurting as far as goods go. They were so hurting, especially for horses. They didn't even have enough horses for their militia. Their militia were useless because most of them were on foot. Yeah. So they couldn't do schnook. They got all their horses from, guess who? The boys out on the plains. So it was very big trade in horses. Where did the boys in the plains get their horses? Well, they went to Texas. And they went to Mexico. And they were ripping off people down there like crazy. Well, it turns out there's one complaint I read in an official record saying an official from Texas complaining to the government of New Mexico and Santa Fe about your damn people. Can't you control them? And they're named one of the guys from San Miguel as being part of the Comanche raiding parties. They're Hispanics from San Miguel as part of going down there and raiding Texas and getting captives of horses and everything else. And so, I can see the Texans are a little bit because they couldn't control their people because they were involved in this madhouse too, going up and down the plains. I mean, the whole thing is like crazy. It's just cool. So it's given me a whole different perspective about these guys out here on the plains and all the interaction and stuff that's going on. Also, for you women, the Comanches had a very poor birth rate because their women were on horses all the time. So child stillbirths and that kind, miscarriages were extremely high among the Comanches. And so their way to take care of that, and diseases and everything, I mean, they were having problems getting their populations up, was to grab everybody. Or if you were dissatisfied Joe Blow Pinon up there in Santa Fe, some of them just decided they'd screw the Spanish. I hate it over here. I'm a slave kind of thing. They'd go out and live with the Comanches. They didn't care who you were or what color you were or where you came from. If you threw into the tribe, you were as full-blooded and had equal rights with everybody else, apparently. So you have lots of people, I don't know about lots, but a fair number going that way. And of course the trade thing is crazy, and they're bringing tons of captives to build up their numbers. So they had, I don't know, I think the figure was something like 20% of the Comanches were actually not genetic Comanches at all. They were everybody else out here to keep those numbers up. So it gives you all kinds of perspective of the dynamics that are going on. The Americans are trading guns and weapons on this side. The Mexicans over here are trading, you know, corn and all kinds of crap to the Comanches out in the middle. Comanches are brokering left and right, and they're broken up in style. I mean, it's a wild place. So that's one reason I don't think they had these things, you know, plausified, fortified, except maybe because I know about late 1820s or 30s, they were starting to run late slave expeditions out of San Miguel, both east and west, and that really pissed people off. So when you got the Spanish out there raiding on the plains of Comanches and they're grabbing captives, that really pisses people off. So I do think the warfare on every level in the 1840s and 1850s started going sky high. So I think these guys, if they had any smarts, may have at least, you know, brought it in a little bit more. That's how I would argue. Am I right? Who knows? I'm new to this game, so I'm, you know, a lot of this stuff, not like him. I mean, he's read this stuff forever.
Well.
So I've just sort of stumbled into this the last 10 years, and I was fooling around trying to understand it. But so Turing stuff gives you at least a different level. It doesn't answer all these questions, but it gives you a better angle, a different perspective that you can look at and assess with all this other stuff that you have. And now this is my third plaza because I got San Jose, I got San Miguel. So I think my sample, it isn't what I'd like it to be, but you know, it's better than anything else we're ever going to have. And that's going to be gone soon, the way things are going. And now I got this one, and so far what we have for dates here hasn't really changed the pattern yet. It doesn't show this kind of tightness that people have been talking about. And you know, 200 years is nothing in this wood game. There's plenty of places around. And yet, you know, the most I'm seeing in somebody like San Jose and down here, basically except for that piece over there, 1850s is when I start seeing something going on. And I go, well, you know, they tear every house down here in the first 30 years and then rebuild? These guys? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, and again, if they are, even if they are, the wood's not going to go to San Miguel from here. I mean, these people are going to save their trees. So even if they were moving things around, the vegans essentially should stay within the community here, and sooner or later I'd hit them, given the sample.
Yeah.